So there I was, fourth cycle into what the Galactic Council called the Apex Predator Cultural Exchange Initiative, which is fancy talk for a really stupid idea wrapped in diplomatic language. You see, someone on the council, probably during a late-night session with too much fermented vegetation juice, decided that the best way for species to demonstrate their evolutionary superiority was to bring their homeworld's most dangerous predator to the quarterly summit. Because nothing says advanced civilization like turning your space station into an intergalactic zoo with teeth. Ambassador Krelax, a 7-foot-tall insectoid from Chitrax Prime, was practically vibrating with pride as he stood next to his species' contribution. And let me tell you, the Chitraxians did not come to play. This thing, which they called a razorwing matriarch, was essentially a wasp the size of a Honda Civic, complete with a stinger that could punch through starship hull plating, and a temperament that made acid rain look friendly. Krelax kept adjusting his ceremonial sash and clicking his mandibles in what I'm pretty sure was the insectoid equivalent of a smug grin. The biocontainment field around his murder wasp flickered with warning lights, and you could hear the thing's wings buzzing like a chainsaw made of pure nightmare fuel. Around the circular council chamber, other ambassadors stood beside their own containment fields, each one showcasing a predator that made Earth's natural history documentaries look like children's programming. The Vrothians brought something called a magma drake, which was basically a 6-legged reptile that sweated sulfuric acid and had apparently evolved in active volcano calderas. Its handler wore a full environmental suit and looked like he was reconsidering his career choices. The Quellans, those pretentious shadow-dwelling aristocrats, had transported a phase stalker, a creature that could shift between dimensions and had approximately 0 natural predators, because it could literally step out of reality when threatened. It kept flickering in and out of visibility, and every time it did, 3 separate proximity alarms went off. Even the Blorptoons, who were essentially sentient coral reefs with delusions of grandeur, had managed to bring some kind of crystalline predator that absorbed energy-based life forms. It just sat there, humming ominously and refracting light in ways that hurt to look at. The council president, an ancient Xanthorian named High Speaker Mordana, surveyed the assembled predators with what I interpreted as poorly concealed regret. Her scales had gone from ceremonial gold to a nervous amber color, which according to my cultural briefing meant she was having second thoughts but was too committed to back out now. She raised one of her 4 arms for attention. The chamber fell silent except for the various growls, hisses, and that one crystalline humming that made your teeth itch. Esteemed delegates, Mordana began, her translator giving her voice that overly formal quality that made everything sound like a funeral announcement. We gather today to celebrate the diversity of predatory evolution across our great confederacy. Each species has brought forth the apex of their world's food chain, demonstrating the challenges we have overcome to reach the stars. Krelax's mandibles clicked approvingly. Show off. We await only one final delegation, Mordana continued, and I swear her scales flickered with something that looked suspiciously like hope. The humans of Earth have yet to present their apex predator. Oh, the murmuring that started then. Every species in that chamber had heard the stories about Earth, the death world, the planet where everything, and I mean everything, was actively trying to kill you, where the water fell from the sky with enough force to erode mountains, where the star's radiation would cook you without proper protection, where the atmospheric conditions created spinning columns of air that could level cities. And the predators. Oh, the legends about Earth's predators could fill a databank. Great white sharks, polar bears, saltwater crocodiles, Komodo dragons. The aliens had done their research, and they were absolutely giddy with anticipation. I watched Krelax lean toward the Vrothian ambassador and whisper something that made them both look toward the main entrance with undisguised excitement. That's when the doors opened, and humanity made its entrance. Ambassador Jordan Mills walked into the council chamber like he was strolling into a coffee shop on a Tuesday morning, which was absolutely not the energy anyone expected from the representative of a certified death world. Jordan was about 6 feet tall, dark-skinned, with graying hair at the temples that somehow made him look more distinguished than old. He wore the standard human diplomatic uniform, navy blue with those little flag pins that humans are so fond of, and he was pulling 2 hover carts behind him. One cart had a standard biocontainment unit, the kind you'd use for something reasonably dangerous. The other cart had what looked like a brightly colored travel bag with cartoon animals on it and a car seat. A car seat. The entire chamber leaned forward collectively. This was it. The moment they'd been waiting for. Earth's apex predator. Krelax's antennae were practically quivering. Ambassador Mills. he announced in that clicking, synthesized voice his translator produced. "We have eagerly awaited your contribution to this cultural exchange. Earth's predatory species are legendary throughout the Confederacy. The suspense, as you humans say, is killing us." Jordan smiled, and it was the kind of smile that should have been a warning label. "Oh, I'm glad you're excited. I really wanted to make sure I brought the absolute apex of Earth's predatory evolution." He pressed a button on the first hover cart. The biocontainment unit's door slid open with a hiss of pressurized air. Every alien in that room tensed. The Vrothian's magma drake stopped drooling acid. The Quellan phase stalker flickered fully into visibility. Even High Speaker Mordana's scales shifted to a bright alert yellow. Out of the carrier stepped an orange tabby cat. Not a tiger, not a lion, not even a particularly large cat. Just a regular, slightly chubby orange tabby with white paws, one eye, and an expression that suggested the universe had personally offended him. The silence in that chamber was so complete, you could hear the climate control systems cycling. Jordan reached down and picked up the cat, who immediately looked annoyed about it. "This is Mr. Whiskers. He's 12 years old, missing his left eye from a disagreement with a raccoon that he absolutely won. By the way, and he has a thyroid condition that requires daily medication, which he hates." Krelax's mandibles opened and closed several times without producing sound. Finally, his translator caught up. "That is a domesticated companion animal." "Nope," Jordan said cheerfully, setting Mr. Whiskers down. The cat immediately sat down and began licking his own butt, maintaining eye contact with Krelax the entire time. "That's an obligate carnivore with a hunting success rate of roughly 32%, which beats African lions at 25%. He's a descendant from an apex predator line that humans invited into our homes approximately 10,000 years ago because we thought they were cute." The Quellan ambassador made a sound like escaping steam. "You domesticated an apex predator for aesthetic purposes." "Well, technically they domesticated themselves," Jordan corrected. "We just didn't stop them. Anyway, that's not even the scary one." He walked over to the second cart and unstrapped the car seat. And that's when 3-year-old Emma Mills entered galactic politics. She was tiny, maybe 3 feet tall, with her father's dark skin and a head full of puffy pigtails. Secured with bright purple hair ties, she wore a shirt with a smiling cartoon, Earth on it that said, "World's Best Planet," and light-up sneakers that blinked with every step. She looked around the council chamber with wide brown eyes, took in the assembled predators and alien dignitaries, and made her assessment of the situation. "Daddy, I'm hungry," she announced. Jordan pulled a small container from the cartoon bag and handed it to her. "Goldfish crackers, sweetie. We talked about this." Emma took the container, opened it with the casual ease of someone who had defeated so-called child-proof packaging many times before, and popped a cracker in her mouth. Then she pointed at Krelax. "Big bug." Krelax's antennae went rigid. "Ambassador Mills, surely you are not suggesting that this juvenile is my daughter Emma?" Jordan said. "Yeah, she's 3, and before you ask, yes, she is absolutely an apex predator." High Speaker Mordana's scales had gone through approximately 7 color changes in the last 30 seconds, and finally settled on confused magenta. "Ambassador, I must confess I do not understand. This is a human offspring. Certainly you have brought your actual predators in additional containment units that are being transported separately?" "Nope," Jordan said, and the way he popped that P should have been a declaration of war. "You wanted apex predators. You got them. One apex predator that humans bred down from larger apex predators until they were small enough to live in our homes and judge us constantly." He gestured at Mr. Whiskers, who had moved on from grooming to staring at the Blorbtoon's crystalline predator, like he was calculating the exact angle required to knock it off its platform. "And one human child, which is essentially a predator that hasn't finished loading yet. She's got about 15 more years of development, and then she'll be a fully operational persistence predator with complex tool use capabilities and abstract reasoning. Right now, she's running on instinct, zero impulse control, and the absolute certainty that the universe revolves around her." Emma had finished her goldfish crackers and was now staring at the Quellan ambassador's ceremonial crown, which was basically a delicate sculpture of woven precious metals and gleaming gems. She pointed at it. "Want that?" The Quellan ambassador clutched his crown protectively. "This is a sacred artifact passed down through 17 generations of mine," Emma declared, with the absolute certainty of someone who had never heard the word no and had it stick. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when things got interesting. High Speaker Mordana, bless her increasingly stressed scales, attempted to regain control of the situation by following the planned agenda. Because nothing says good leadership like pretending a potential diplomatic incident isn't brewing while a toddler locks eyes with priceless alien artifacts. Perhaps we should proceed with the Sanger. Scheduled demonstrations, she announced, her translator adding what I'm pretty sure was a nervous warble. Each species will showcase their predator's natural capabilities in the designated arena. The center of the council chamber floor split open, and a reinforced demonstration platform rose up. It was outfitted with various testing stations, including durability targets, live prey simulations, and what looked suspiciously like a jungle gym for murderous alien wildlife. The Vrothian ambassador went first because his magma drake was getting agitated and leaving acid burn marks on the flooring. The handler, still wearing his full environmental suit, guided the six-legged nightmare into the arena. "Behold the magma drake of Vroth 7, the ambassador announced with entirely too much pride. Evolved in volcanic thermal zones, where temperatures exceed 1200 degrees standard. Observe. The drake reared up and spat a stream of concentrated acid at a reinforced steel plate. The metal bubbled, hissed, and collapsed into a steaming puddle within seconds. Several ambassadors clapped politely. Krelax clicked his mandibles in approval. Jordan was holding Emma on his hip while she munched on another goldfish cracker. Mr. Whiskers had somehow relocated to a nearby observation bench and was loafing with his paws tucked under his chest, judging everyone. The Quellen went next, and their phase stalker did its dimensional flickering trick, appearing and disappearing across the arena, demonstrating how it could bypass any physical barrier by simply existing in a different layer of reality for a moment. Very impressive. Very terrifying. Definitely could kill you before you even knew it was there. Emma watched with vague interest, then went back to her crackers. 4 more species went through their demonstrations. The Blorptoon's crystalline predator absorbed energy from a power cell in under 10 seconds. Some kind of flying serpent thing from the Talaxian system demonstrated sonar capabilities that could shatter glass. On and on it went, each predator more impressive and lethal than the last. Krelax was practically vibrating with anticipation when his turn came, and now, honored delegates, witnessed the apex achievement of Chitraxian evolution. The Razorwing matriarch. His massive murder wasp entered the arena, wings creating that chainsaw buzz that made your skeleton try to leave your body. The handlers activated a ballistic gel dummy in human shape, and the Razorwing struck. It was over in less than 3 seconds. The stinger punched through the dummy's chest, the mandibles shredded through the neck, and the wings created enough force to destabilize anything nearby. The dummy collapsed in pieces. Krelax bowed to scattered applause, his antennae at maximum smug angle. And finally, High Speaker Mordana said, her scales now a resigned purple color, "Humanity will demonstrate their apex predators." Jordan set Emma down. "Okay, sweetie. Just like we talked about. Show them what you can do." Emma nodded seriously, her pigtails bouncing. Then she toddled into the arena with the determination of someone about to commit a minor atrocity. She walked straight past all the testing stations, ignored the demonstration equipment, and marched directly toward the Quellen ambassador's seating area, her light-up shoes blinking with each step like tiny harbingers of chaos. "Young human," the Quellen said nervously. "This is not the designated demonstration zone." Emma pointed at his crown. "Want that? Give me. This is a ceremonial artifact of immense cultural significance. Mine." Emma's voice hit a frequency that made the universal translators screech feedback. The Quellen clutched his crown. "Ambassador Mills, control your offspring." Jordan just leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "She's demonstrating. You wanted to see apex predator behavior." What happened next was a masterclass in psychological warfare that no military academy in the galaxy could teach. Emma's bottom lip began to tremble. Her eyes got wider, shinier. This was it, the preparation phase. Every parent in the universe recognized what was coming, but the aliens had no idea. "No?" Emma said in a small voice. "No crown?" "That's correct, small human. You cannot have the wail that came out of Emma's tiny body could have been registered as a sonic weapon. It wasn't just loud. It was strategically loud. It hit harmonics that made the Blorptoon's crystalline predator dim and the phase stalker flicker rapidly in apparent distress. But that wasn't the impressive part. Emma dropped to the floor and began what humans call a tantrum, but what was clearly an advanced tactical maneuver. She thrashed. She kicked. She screamed words that might have been language but sounded more like concentrated rage given physical form. The magma drake backed away from its handler. The Razorwing matriarch's wings stopped buzzing and folded flat against its body in what any behavioral specialist would recognize as a submission posture. Emma rolled across the arena floor, tears streaming down her face, snot bubbling from her nose. screaming about the crown and also apparently about something called Bluey that she wanted to watch, and how someone named Madison was mean to her at something called preschool. High Speaker Morgana's scales were cycling through colors so fast she looked like a malfunctioning display screen. Ambassador Mills, please. But Emma wasn't done. She stood up, tears still flowing, walked to the ballistic dummy that the Razor Wing had destroyed, picked up a piece of it, and threw it. Her aim was terrible. The piece sailed harmlessly past the Quellan ambassador. But then she screamed, "I hate you!" with such conviction that the Quellan actually flinched, and that's when she deployed the ultimate weapon. Emma took a deep, shuddering breath, looked directly at her father, and said in the most pathetic voice possible, "Daddy doesn't love me." Jordan didn't even blink. 5 more minutes, sweetie. Show them the persistence. So Emma sat down in the middle of the arena, crossed her arms, stuck out her bottom lip, and began a low, continuous whine that wasn't quite crying but definitely wasn't not crying. It was the audio equivalent of water torture. 5 minutes turned into 10. The whine continued. None of the aliens knew what to do. Their predators could kill, sure, but this? This was something else entirely. "Make it stop," Krelax finally said. All his earlier smugness evaporated. "Please, Ambassador, make the small humans stop." Emma heard the word please and her eyes lit up. She'd found the weakness. "Crown?" she said hopefully. The Quellan ambassador looked at his sacred 17th-generation artifact, looked at Emma, looked at the other delegates, all of whom were silently pleading with him to end this. He took off the crown. Emma stopped crying instantly, smiled like sunshine after a hurricane, walked over and took the crown, placed it on her own head where it immediately fell sideways, said, "Thank you," in perfect polite child voice, and toddled back to her father. The arena was silent except for that low whining sound, which everyone suddenly realized wasn't Emma anymore. It was coming from the Razorwing matriarch, who was still cowering in the corner. High Speaker Morgana was attempting to restore order to what had become less of a diplomatic summit and more of a psychological warfare demonstration, when someone made the critical mistake of opening a refreshment cart near Mr. Whisker's observation bench. The attendant, a nervous Talaxian junior diplomat, was just trying to distribute ceremonial beverages to help calm everyone's nerves after the Emma incident. But the moment that cart's protective lid lifted, releasing the aroma of some kind of fermented fish product the Aquarians favored, Mr. Whisker's one good eye snapped open. His pupils dilated to maximum murder mode. Jordan saw it happening. "Oh no." "What?" Krelax asked, still recovering from being terrorized by a 3-year-old. "The cat's activated." Before anyone could ask what that meant, Mr. Whiskers transformed from a loafing, judgmental house pet into a guided missile with fur. He launched off the bench, hit the ground at a full sprint, and executed a wall run that would have made parkour athletes weep with envy. He ricocheted off a decorative support column, sailed through the air with the grace of a ballistic weapon, and landed directly on top of the refreshment cart. The Talaxian attendant screamed and stumbled backward. Mr. Whiskers surveyed his conquest, located the source of the fish smell, and began knocking items off the cart one by one while maintaining absolutely unbroken eye contact with the nearest ambassador. A crystal decanter hit the floor. Shattered. Mr. Whiskers' tail swished. His expression clearly said, "I'd do it again." "Someone restrain that creature," the Blorptoon ambassador gurgled. The 2 security officers who approached learned a valuable lesson about Earth's predators. The first one reached for Mr. Whiskers and got a lightning-fast paw swipe across his manipulator appendage. No claws extended, just a warning tap. But the officer jerked back like he'd been shot. The second officer tried the diplomatic approach. "Nice predator. Calm predator." Mr. Whiskers' ears went flat against his head. He puffed up to roughly twice his normal size, arched his back, and produced a hiss that sounded like a steam leak in Hell's basement. Both officers retreated. "He's one small feline," Krelax protested. "Surely your security can manage." Mr. Whiskers chose violence. He exploded off the cart in a ginger blur, hit the floor, and began what Jordan would later describe as establishing dominance over the environment. He parkoured from surface to surface, treating the council chamber like his personal jungle gym. He jumped onto the Vrothian delegation's table, walked the entire length of it, and deliberately swept a datapad off the edge with his paw. It clattered to the floor. He paused, looked back at the Vrothian ambassador, and you could see him calculating whether to sweep off the next item. He did. "This is unacceptable." High Speaker Morgana's scales were now stress crimson. "Ambassador Mills!" Jordan was holding Emma, who was watching Mr. Whiskers with pure delight. In my defense, I did warn you he was an apex predator. Mr. Whiskers had located something that called to him on a spiritual level. The ceremonial crystal of council unity, a priceless artifact that sat on a pedestal at the chamber's center, representing the peaceful cooperation of all Confederacy species. It was roughly the size and shape of a large vase. Every single diplomat in that room saw where this was going. Don't, High Speaker Mordana said. Please don't. Mr. Whiskers placed one paw on the crystal. We can negotiate, the Quellan ambassador offered, still wearing Emma's sticker collection on his clothing from when she'd hugged him after getting the crown. Mr. Whiskers looked at the assembled dignitaries. You could see him thinking. You could see him weighing his options. You could see him decide that the chaos was worth whatever consequences might follow. He pushed the crystal. It wobbled. No! Multiple species shouted in harmony, possibly the first time they'd all agreed on anything. The crystal tipped, fell, and shattered into approximately 700 pieces across the chamber floor. Mr. Whiskers sat down, wrapped his tail around his paws, and radiated smug satisfaction. But he wasn't done. Oh no. Because while everyone was staring in horror at the shattered symbol of galactic unity, Mr. Whiskers had noticed something even better. High Speaker Mordana's elevated chair. It was positioned above all the other seating, a throne-like seat that represented the speakers, authority over council proceedings. It was upholstered in some kind of exotic material that was probably soft and warm. Mr. Whiskers could work with that. He executed a series of jumps that demonstrated exactly why cats were such efficient hunters. Table to bench to railing to the decorative statue of the first speaker, and finally, with a leap that suggested he'd calculated the trajectory days in advance, directly into High Speaker Mordana's chair. He circled 3 times, kneaded the upholstery with his paws, and settled into a loaf position. The chair was his now. Get that animal out of the High Speaker's seat, Krelax demanded. 3 security officers approached. Mr. Whiskers' one eye tracked them with the cold precision of a sniper acquiring targets. The lead officer reached for him. The hiss that emerged from Mr. Whiskers contained frequencies that the translator couldn't process, but that every organic brain interpreted as, touch me, and lose the hand. All 3 officers backed away. He's just sitting there, the Blorptoon ambassador observed. Surely we can simply remove him by force. You're welcome to try, Jordan said. But I should mention that Mr. Whiskers has a very specific policy about being moved when he doesn't want to be moved. Which is? High Speaker Mordana asked in a defeated tone. Murder. Emma nodded seriously, her oversized crown still sliding around on her head. Mr. Whiskers is spicy. The cat in question surveyed his new kingdom from the High Speaker's chair, and you could practically see him thinking about which priceless artifact to terrorize next. His tail flicked once, twice, a metronome of barely contained chaos. Somewhere in the chamber, the razor-wing matriarch made that whining sound again. Krelax's antennae drooped. I withdraw my earlier statements about human predators being unimpressive. Appreciated, Jordan said. From her new throne, Mr. Whiskers slow blinked at the assembled council with his one eye. It was the most threatening display of affection the galaxy had ever witnessed. Station Xenobiology Officer Tlin had been watching the proceedings from the observation deck, and at some point during Mr. Whiskers' hostile takeover of the council chamber, she'd stopped taking notes and started stress-eating her emergency ration bars. Tlin was a Korvaxian, which meant she looked like someone had given a praying mantis a doctoral degree in anxiety issues. Her compound eyes could process data faster than most computer systems, and right now, they were processing something that was causing her secondary nervous system to misfire. She burst through the chamber doors holding a datapad and making a sound that her translator rendered as panicked academic screeching. High Speaker, she called out, her walking appendages clattering on the floor. I need to present urgent findings. Mordana, who had been forced to stand beside her own chair while Mr. Whiskers occupied, it like a furry tyrant, gestured weakly. Please, the situation cannot possibly get worse. Tlin's eye stalks swiveled to look at Emma, who was now sitting on the floor teaching the Quellan phase stalker how to play patty cake, and then at Mr. Whiskers, who had begun grooming himself in the High Speaker's chair, with the kind of thorough attention that suggested he planned to be there a while. That's where you're wrong, Tlin said. She activated her datapad, and a holographic display filled the center of the chamber. I've been running analysis on these 2 organisms, and the results are absolutely terrifying. Krelax perked up. Surely you're being dramatic. They're barely dangerous compared to your razor wing. Matriarch is currently cowering in a corner because a juvenile human yelled at it. Tlin interrupted, and her translator added what might have been exasperation. Let me explain what's actually happening here. She pulled up a genetic chart. First, the feline. Species name Felis catus. Hunting success rate of 32%, which Ambassador Mills correctly noted exceeds that of Panthera leo, Earth's lions, at 25%. But that's not the terrifying part. She zoomed in on a timeline. Humans encountered these predators approximately 10,000 Earth years ago. The cats were apex predators in their weight class. Perfect killing machines. Retractable claws, specialized teeth, exceptional hearing, night vision, flexible spines allowing them to right themselves during falls from heights that would kill most species. Yes, the Vrothian ambassador said. But they're small. Your predators are too big. Flynn snapped. That's the problem. These cats were the perfect size to be absolutely lethal to Earth's small to medium fauna, which made them useful for pest control. So humans looked at these efficient little murder machines and said, let's bring them into our homes. She pulled up another chart. Humans didn't domesticate cats. Current xenoanthropological consensus is that cats essentially domesticated themselves by hanging around human settlements, and humans just let them, invited them inside, bred them for aesthetic variations, created hundreds of subspecies based on fur color and pattern. Mordana's scales flickered. I don't understand why this is horrifying. Because Earth is so dangerous that humans' relaxation involves cohabiting with predators. Flynn's voice was getting higher. They share their sleeping quarters with these creatures. They allow them access to vulnerable family members, including infants. They voluntarily provide food and shelter to an animal that, and I cannot stress this enough, only partially considers itself domesticated. She pointed at Mr. Whiskers, who chose that moment to yawn, displaying an impressive array of teeth. That specimen has a thyroid condition requiring daily medication. The human has to manually administer pills to a predator. Do you understand? They trained themselves to safely give medicine to an animal with knives on its feet. Several ambassadors shifted uncomfortably. And look at its behavior, Flynn continued, pulling up footage from the chamber's security system. It demonstrated territorial dominance by destroying property while maintaining eye contact. It claimed the highest position in the room as a throne. It responded to attempted removal with threat displays that caused trained security personnel to retreat. This is apex predator behavior. But it's one small creature, Krelax protested weakly. Earth has an estimated 600 million of these predators living in human homes by choice, Flynn said. 600 million, and humans consider them beloved companions. They have digital networks dedicated to sharing images of them. They call them things like fur baby and sweet boy, while the creatures plot their destruction. She pulled up more data. And that's just the cats. Let's talk about the juvenile human. Emma waved from her position on the floor. Hi. Flynn's eye stalks focused on the toddler. Human juveniles are essentially underdeveloped persistence predators. On their homeworld, adult humans can literally chase prey until it dies of exhaustion. They can run for days. They can track wounded animals for weeks. They can throw projectiles with enough accuracy to kill from a distance. They have enough endurance to outlast almost any other predator on their planet. She zoomed in on an image of human anatomy. They evolved to be pursuit predators on a world where everything else was faster, stronger, or more heavily armored. So they became the species that just doesn't stop. Ever, the small one cried. The Blorptoon ambassador pointed out. That's hardly predatory. That wasn't crying. Flynn was full-on ranting now. That was psychological warfare. She assessed the situation, identified the target, determined the optimal pressure point, and applied sustained psychological stress until the target capitulated. And she's 3 years old. She's operating on pure instinct and barely developed cognition. She pulled up developmental charts. Human juveniles are born essentially helpless compared to most species. They can't walk for a year, can't hunt for over a decade. They require constant supervision because they lack self-preservation instincts. That doesn't sound terrifying, Mordana said. It is when you realize humans evolved to have helpless offspring because their environment was so lethal that natural selection favored the strategy of keep the babies stupid until they're big enough to not immediately carry them. Die, Flynn said. Other species young can run from predators within hours of birth. Human babies can't even hold up their own heads. They're born premature by evolutionary standards because if they cooked any longer in the womb, their heads would be too big to fit through the birth canal. Several ambassadors made disturbed noises. And yet humans protect these vulnerable offspring for years, decades even, in an environment filled with megafauna, weather events that can level cities, tectonic activity, and thousands of species of venomous creatures. The dedication required to keep a human juvenile alive on Earth is staggering. She gestured at Emma. That specimen just demonstrated tool use, strategic planning, psychological manipulation, and social engineering. At 3 years old. Imagine what she'll be capable of at full development. Surely you're exaggerating, Krelak said, though his antennae suggested he was no longer sure. Am I? Tlin pulled up one final image. Humans have defeated every single child safety mechanism ever designed by our best engineers. Cabinet locks? They figure them out. Safety gates? They climb them. Protective containers? They open them. We've had 7 different species try to create foolproof juvenile containment systems for humans. All 7 failed. She closed her data pad. Humans voluntarily coexist with partially domesticated predators and aggressively persistent juvenile hunters because that's what they consider a normal family structure on their death world. And they're confused why we find this alarming. The chamber fell silent. Emma chose that moment to toddle over to the magma drake's containment field and press her face against it. Puppy! That is an acid-secreting reptile capable of melting through starship hulls, the Vrothian handler said nervously. Big puppy, Emma insisted. From the high speaker's chair, Mr. Whiskers meowed once, a sound that the translators couldn't quite process, but that every delegate somehow understood meant, these are my humans, and yes, we're all insane. Tlin slumped against the nearest wall. I need a drink, several drinks, and possibly a career change. High speaker Mordana stood beside her own chair, which was still occupied by a one-eyed orange cat who had made it abundantly clear. He wasn't moving, and did what any good politician does when faced with an unwinnable situation. She called for an emergency vote. Honored delegates, she began, her scales now a defeated shade of gray that the Xanthorian color spectrum reserved for total surrender. In light of recent demonstrations and the scientific analysis provided by Officer Tlin, I move to amend the Apex Predator Cultural Exchange Initiative. Seconded, Krelak said immediately, his antennae still drooping from the emotional trauma of the last hour. The motion on the floor, Mordana continued, pulling up the legal language on the main display, is to create a specific exemption for humanity regarding any and all future requirements to display, demonstrate, or transport their homeworld's predatory species to Confederacy events. All in favor? She asked, and the response was immediate and unanimous. Every single appendage, tentacle, manipulator, and wing in that chamber raised in agreement. The Vrothian Ambassador raised 3 of his 4 arms, using the 4th to keep his magma drake from trying to hide behind him. Even the Blorptoon, who didn't technically have limbs, managed to pulse its bioluminescence in what the translator interpreted as, yes please, make it stop. The motion passes, Mordana announced with visible relief. Effective immediately, Earth is granted a permanent exemption from… Wait, Jordan said, and everyone froze. Krelax's mandibles chattered nervously. Ambassador Mills, please. We're trying to be reasonable here. Oh, I appreciate that, Jordan said, still holding Emma, who had somehow acquired the Quellan ambassador's ceremonial sash in addition to the crown, and was now draped in diplomatic accessories like a very small, very chaotic fashion statement. I just want to make sure this exemption is properly documented. He pulled out his own data pad. So, just to confirm, humanity is formally exempt from bringing predators to diplomatic functions. Yes, Mordana said. All predatory species from Earth? Absolutely yes, including the ones that might be considered only moderately dangerous. The entire council responded in unison. Yes. Jordan smiled and made a note. Perfect. I just wanted to be clear, because I left our dog at home. The reaction was immediate and visceral. Tlin, who had been trying to calm her nerves in the corner, dropped her ration bar. You have another one? Well, yeah, Jordan said casually, like he hadn't just detonated a diplomatic bomb. Golden retriever named Biscuit. He's about 70 pounds of pure enthusiasm and unconditional love. Absolutely terrible guard dog. Would probably lick an intruder to death. Krelax's antennae shot straight up. 70 pounds? That's larger than your feline. Oh, way larger, Jordan agreed. And dogs are descended from wolves, which are pack-hunting apex predators that humans domesticated somewhere between 20 and 40,000 years ago. We bred them into hundreds of different varieties for different purposes. Hunting, herding, guarding, companionship. Some of them weigh over 200 pounds. The Vrothian ambassador made a sound like a deflating balloon. You domesticated pack hunters? Plural? Humans have approximately 900 million dogs living in their homes, Tlin said weakly. pulling up the data on her pad with shaking appendages. 900 million domesticated pack predators that they keep as pets, working animals, and emotional support companions. Biscuit's great with kids, Jordan continued, because apparently he'd decided to give the council a complete mental breakdown. Emma rides him like a horse sometimes. He just wags his tail and accepts his fate. Emma nodded enthusiastically, making the crown slip further down over her eyes. Biscuit is my best friend. He eats my vegetables when Daddy's not looking. Your juvenile feeds your large predator while unsupervised. Mordana's scales were cycling, through colors that probably didn't have names yet. They're basically best friends, Jordan said. Biscuit sleeps in her room. Sometimes she uses him as a pillow. Krelax turned to Tlin. Tell me this is less alarming than it sounds. Tlin pulled up more data, her eye stalks moving independently as she scanned multiple screens. Dogs have been selectively bred by humans for traits including loyalty, obedience, and emotional bonding. They've essentially hijacked dogs' pack instincts to make the dogs consider humans as pack members. She zoomed in on a genetic comparison. Humans took wolves, literal apex predators that hunt in coordinated groups, and over thousands of generations turned them into animals that are neurologically bonded to humans. Dogs produce oxytocin, a bonding hormone, when they make eye contact with humans. Humans produce it too. They've created a cross-species emotional feedback loop with predators. That's actually really beautiful, the Quellan ambassador said quietly. It's horrifying, Tlin countered. They chemically bonded themselves to wolves, and they did it so successfully that dogs now have an entire section of their brain dedicated to reading human facial expressions and emotional states. We can barely get translation software to work properly, and humans accidentally created an entirely new species that can read their minds through body language. Jordan shrugged. Biscuit knows when Emma's sad. He brings her his favorite toy. That's not better, Tlin shrieked. Mr. Whiskers, apparently annoyed by all the yelling, stood up in the high speaker's chair, stretched in that way cats do that makes them temporarily double in length, yawned to show off his impressive dental work, and then settled back down in a slightly different position. The message was clear. He would leave when he was good and ready, and not a moment before. High Speaker Mordana pulled herself together with visible effort. Ambassador Mills, I'm going to ask you a direct question, and I need you to be completely honest. Of course. How many predatory species have humans domesticated? Jordan thought about it. Define domesticated. Living in human homes, dependent on humans for survival, bred by humans for specific traits. Well, there's cats and dogs, obviously. Ferrets, which are domesticated polecats. Some people keep snakes, lizards, even spiders as pets. Oh, and horses, which aren't predators, but they're 1,000-pound animals that can kill you with one kick, and humans let children ride them for fun. Tlin was typing frantically. He's not exaggerating. Humans have domesticated or semi-domesticated dozens of species, many of them dangerous. They keep venomous reptiles in glass containers in their living spaces. They ride animals large enough to crush them. They have entire industries dedicated to caring for these creatures. And that's just the ones in homes, Jordan added helpfully. We've also got working relationships, with predatory birds for falconry, semi-domesticated big cats in some regions, and there's a whole debate about whether raccoons can be domesticated, though personally I think those are demons in fur coats. Emma perked up. I saw a raccoon once. Mr. Whiskers fought it. Who won? Krelax asked, then immediately looked like he regretted the question. Mr. Whiskers, Emma said proudly. But the raccoon was mean and gave him a boo-boo on his eye. That's why he only has one now. But Mr. Whiskers is brave. Every single delegate looked at the cat in the high speaker's chair with new respect and a healthy dose of fear. Mr. Whiskers had fought something called a raccoon, lost an eye, won the fight, and was still confident enough to stage a hostile takeover of the council chamber. The Blorptoon ambassador pulsed a deep blue color. What exactly is a raccoon? Trash pandas, Jordan said. Omnivorous mammals with opposable thumbs, problem-solving intelligence, and zero fear. They're not domesticated. They just show up in human cities and raid garbage bins. Sometimes they break into houses. And humans just tolerate this? Mordana asked. We think they're cute, Jordan said. There are videos of them washing their food that get millions of views. Though honestly, they're kind of terrifying when you think about it. Smart, dexterous, adaptable, and absolutely fearless. Tlin was making a sound that her translator couldn't quite process, but that was definitely distress. Your planet has non-domesticated predators that invade human settlements, and humans think they're adorable. Well, yeah, we've got lots of those. Bears going through trash, coyotes in the suburbs, alligators in golf course, water hazards in Florida, which is basically our Australia light region. What's Australia? Krelax asked in a tone that suggested he wasn't sure he wanted to know. Jordan's smile got wider. It's a continent where literally everything is venomous, poisonous, or both. Spiders the size of dinner plates, jellyfish that can kill you in minutes, octopi that are smaller than your fist and carry enough venom to kill 26 adult humans. Snakes. So many snakes. Birds that can disembowel you with their feet. And about 25 million humans live there by choice. The silence in the chamber was profound. They live there on purpose? The Vrothian whispered. Australia's great, Jordan said. Beautiful beaches, amazing wildlife, friendly people. You just have to check your shoes for spiders in the morning and avoid swimming during stinger season. Stinger season, Mordana repeated flatly. When the deadly jellyfish are most active, but humans just wear protective suits and swim anyway. Tlin had given up on standing and simply sat on the floor. Of course they do. Why wouldn't they? Emma, who had been quietly investigating her collection of diplomatic accessories, suddenly gasped. Daddy, can we go to the snack place? I want space ice cream. Sure, sweetie. Jordan shifted her on his hip. We should probably get going anyway. It's almost nap time. The entire council perked up. Nap time? They asked hopefully. For Emma, Jordan clarified. She gets cranky if she doesn't get her afternoon sleep. The implications hung in the air like a threat. If what they'd witnessed was Emma at her best behavior, nobody wanted to see cranky. Well, Jordan said, looking up at Mr. Whiskers, who was still firmly enthroned on the high speaker's chair. Come on, buddy. Time to go. Mr. Whiskers stared at him with his one eye. I've got treats, Jordan said. Mr. Whiskers' ear twitched. Salmon treats. Your favorite. The cat stood, stretched again with theatrical slowness, and then leaped down from the chair with effortless grace. He walked over to Jordan, weaving between his legs once, and then sat down and began grooming his paw as if nothing had happened. Before you go, Krelax said, his voice strained, I must ask, I mentioned you didn't bring your dog because you didn't want to scare anyone. Right, but you brought a juvenile human and a one-eyed cat. Well, yeah, Jordan said. Biscuit's a lot. He gets excited around new people and wants to be everyone's friend. He would have been jumping on everyone, licking faces, trying to play. It would have been chaos. The council stared at him. You thought a friendly dog would be worse than what we just experienced? Mordana asked. Jordan considered this. Biscuit weighs 70 pounds and doesn't understand personal space. Emma's only 30 pounds and at least she listens sometimes. Mr. Whiskers is self-regulating. Biscuit would have tried to make friends with all your predators, probably freaked them out even more, and definitely would have knocked over at least 3 pieces of expensive equipment. Biscuit has no manners, Emma agreed solemnly. But I love him anyway. Jordan gathered up Mr. Whiskers' carrier, the hover carts, and Emma's collection of acquired diplomatic items that nobody had the energy to ask for back. Anyway, thanks for the exemption. Very understanding of you all. Wait, Tlin called out, pulling herself together for one final question. Ambassador Mills, I need to know, why did you really bring your daughter and your cat? You had to know this would happen. Jordan paused at the door and smiled. Officer Tlin, you just spent the last hour explaining exactly why I brought them. The Confederacy wanted a show of evolutionary superiority. Every species here brought their biggest, scariest predators to prove how tough their homeworld made them. He adjusted Emma on his hip. Earth didn't make us tough because we had to fight big predators. Earth made us tough because we had to survive everything. So we learned to adapt, to domesticate, to coexist. We didn't conquer our predators. We made them family. He gestured at Mr. Whiskers. This cat's ancestors were apex predators, and we invited them in. Dogs were pack hunters, and we taught them to trust us. We're surrounded by things that could kill us, and we decided to live with them anyway. That's not superiority, Jordan said. That's insanity. Exactly, Jordan agreed. But it's our insanity, and now you know what humanity brings to the Confederacy. Not the biggest predator, not the scariest monster. Just the absolute certainty that we'll make friends with anything, even if it's a terrible idea. He headed for the door, then stopped one more time. Oh, and High Speaker? Yes? Mordana asked weakly. Emma wanted me to say thank you for the crown, and to tell you that you're invited to her birthday party next month. Fair warning, though. We're having it at a petting zoo. What's a petting zoo? It's a place where we keep domesticated animals so children can interact with them. Goats, sheep, ponies. You know, for fun. Those sound harmless, Krelax said hopefully. Goats will eat anything. Sheep can break bones with their headbutts if they feel threatened. And ponies are basically attitude problems with hooves, Jordan said cheerfully. But the kids love them. See you next quarter. And with that, Ambassador Jordan Mills, his daughter Emma, and Mr. Whiskers left the council chamber. The silence stretched for a full minute. Finally, Krelax turned to his razor-wing matriarch, still cowering in its corner, and said, I owe you an apology. You're actually a very reasonable predator, very sensible. Good decision-making regarding that juvenile human. The razor-wing made a sound that might have been agreement or might have been trauma. Hard to say. High Speaker Mordana slowly climbed back into her chair, which still had orange cat hair on it. Motion to adjourn? Seconded. The entire council shouted in unison. As the delegates filed out, already composing reports to their homeworlds about the humans and their domesticated nightmares, Tlin remained behind, updating her xenobiology files. She added a new classification to Earth's entry. Death World, Class 12. Apex Predator status. All of them, apparently. Dominant species. Persistence predators with cross-species Stockholm Syndrome and aggressive befriending instincts. Threat level. Unclear. Recommend. Do not challenge them to predator demonstrations. Do not accept party invitations. Do not ask about their pets. She paused, then added one final note. Also, their toddlers are more terrifying than our warforms. This cannot be stressed enough. Somewhere on the station, in the diplomatic quarters, Emma was having her afternoon nap, surrounded by stolen diplomatic accessories, while Biscuit's photo on Jordan's desk smiled dopily at the camera with a tennis ball in his mouth. And on Earth, approximately 600 million cats and 900 million dogs went about their day, completely unaware that they'd just been classified as weapons of psychological warfare by the Galactic Confederacy. Mr. Whiskers, however, knew exactly what he was, and he was very proud of it.